Due to the long-lasting civil war in Northern Ireland, most people don't think of it as a tourist destination. But with the peace plan in the works and a newfound stability, tourism is on the rise, and there's lots to see and do. Beyond the fabulous scenery Ireland is known for, tucked into the green hills and jagged coastline, is Belfast, a modern city with a history that can still be experienced on the streets here. Plus, it's got great museums for kids. We'll explore it all in
Travel Kids Ireland!
Travel. Who says it can't be done with the kids? Well, many have, and we're here to prove otherwise. Here's our story.
Sometime after college and before being grown-ups, we, that's me,
And that's me.
left it all behind for 1 year to see the world. With a one-way ticket in hand, we had a grand adventure across 35 countries.
Fast forward 5 years, a house payment, real jobs, and a different sort of adventure called parenthood. With these guys,
That's me. I'm Nathan and I'm 7. That's me. I'm Janice and I'm 5.
Now we're off again to share our adventures with you as we discover the wonders of the world, the wonders of nature, the wonders of parenthood, and sometimes wonder, what were we thinking in Travel with Kids? In this episode of Travel with Kids, join us as we explore the history here in Belfast, a history that is alive and well in the street art here, and is still making headlines today.
It's here in Belfast. Right there. It's here in Belfast.
Plus, find out what's this tall in Belfast,
As high as the Eiffel Tower.
and what Seamus is trying to do here.
It's going fast. What track do you need it on?
although there's lots of cheap flights from London and Liverpool, we're heading into Belfast by car from the Republic of Ireland. Because Northern Ireland has been in the headlines around the world for its struggles and troubles for the past few decades, we're a little bit nervous about what to expect. And entering from the Republic, Southern Ireland, we're not sure what to expect as far as a border crossing. The owners at our B&B in Westport say they make the drive frequently and it's very safe and easy driving, so we're on our way.
The drive is beautiful, as all drives in Ireland are. Misty mountains surrounded by green fields, narrow winding roads lined with stone walls. We packed a picnic lunch for the car so we can limit our stops. We always want to make a short drive for kids. So we chow cheese sandwiches and watch the scenery go by.
What do you see? Sheep.
Play games and take naps. Along the way, Nathan has a revelation. Which comes at precisely the right moment as I notice a subtle change.
Speed limits are in miles per hour.
The speed limit signs have changed for Northern Ireland. That's it. No security checkpoints or barbed wire fences, no neutral territory or huge border markings. Just a change in government signage and the road gets wider. More like a freeway now, and a straight shot into Belfast.
Like other divided cities emerging from decades of struggle, Belfast is on the move. There's a high energy about the place and tourists are greeted like old friends. But it wasn't always that way. Belfast started out in conflict. The first settlement here was actually destroyed. The first English settlers arrived in the early 17th century, along with French Protestants fleeing persecution in France. But the Catholics and Protestants were on friendly terms back then, actually uniting for increased independence from England. The friction between these two groups would develop later. In the late 19th century, Belfast grew in big part because of the Industrial Revolution. Huge factories and shipyards brought thousands of workers. And by the start of World War II, Belfast had a population of almost 500,000 people. After the southern half of the island achieved independence from England, Belfast became the capital of Northern Ireland. Today, almost 300,000 people call Belfast home, and the peace process has brought about an economic boom.
The city is laid out around City Hall, a prosperous building constructed in the heyday of the Industrial Revolution. The kids enjoy running through the open areas around the building.
Nathan, you see all the statue guys?
Pedestrian streets lined with lively pubs and shops lead off the square to the north. We are staying a couple blocks west of here at the Jury's Inn, just down the street from the famous Europa Hotel, an often targeted landmark in the city, and Crown Saloon, a pub dating back to the Victorian times, which is where we're headed for a little grub.
The outside of the pub is painted in bright yellows and red, with intricately carved designs. Inside, cozy leather booths are enclosed by warm woods and glass. The bar looks like it's out of a movie with brass accents and old oak barrels.
Upstairs, we're seated in a quaint room, and there's plenty of good old pub food on the menu. Irish stew, chicken and potatoes, sandwiches, and a different take on the kids' fish and chips.
What do you got? Ah, you bit his head off.
After seeing City Hall yesterday and the area that used to be heavily militarized during the Troubles, we want to learn more about this turbulent time in Northern Ireland's history. So we're taking a black taxi tour of the city. Mind you, not all the taxis are actually painted black. The taxi will take us to see the Peace Line, Belfast's version of the Berlin Wall, and the Protestant and Catholic neighborhoods that saw much of the fighting.
It was the late 1960s when the Catholic and Protestant line was drawn. Up until that time, although Catholics were in a majority in many places, the Protestants received a majority of the representation in government due to unfair voting practices and were privy to most of the government jobs, including the police force, which caused major friction. At one point, the force was less than 10% Catholic, even though Catholics in some areas made up almost half the population. During this time, anti-Catholic statements like Cromwell's tirades against the church were met with favor by many Protestants. In 1969, a peaceful civil rights group protesting these and other injustices marched from Belfast to Derry, where the police just watched on as a violent mob created havoc for the marchers. It was then that the Troubles, as these times are known, began. Peaceful protest was not working, said the Irish Republican Army, which had been silent for decades, and they made a comeback. The Northern Ireland Parliament was abolished, and British troops were sent in to maintain peace. But the troops held a heavy hand in Catholic neighborhoods, and in 1972, the British troops killed 13 innocent civilians in an act that is known as Bloody Sunday, an act that brought the IRA's campaign of violence to mainland England and escalated the Troubles. In retaliation to the IRA violence, extreme Protestant leaders like Ian Paisley took the reins of power, and armed groups like the Ulster Volunteer Force sprang up. Each act of violence was then met with an equally or more atrocious act, escalating the Troubles. The 1980s saw the peak of violence in Northern Ireland. Catholics railed against imprisonment without trial of suspected IRA members. You can see the old jail and courthouse, which were connected via underground tunnel to maintain secrecy and prevent violent protests. And rallied behind famed figures like Bobby Sands, who went on a hunger strike in prison to be recognized as a political prisoner. Protestants dug their heels in by holding on to their right to march, even though sometimes their routes went through Catholic neighborhoods, stirring up new tension.
In the 1990s, after almost 30 years of fighting, things finally started to settle down. The economy improved, the Catholic Church south of the border played less of a role, the British pulled out many of their troops. In 1994, Jerry Adams and Martin McGuinness of Sinn Féin declared a ceasefire on behalf of the IRA, which was matched by the Loyalist forces. In 1998, all groups signed the Good Friday Agreement, which basically said the fate of Northern Ireland would be decided on by democratic vote by the people living in Northern Ireland with no outside interference. The agreement was agreed to by the people of Northern Ireland with an overwhelming majority. But the same year saw a new outbreak of violence. The Orange Order announced new planned marches through Catholic neighborhoods, and extreme Protestant groups planted bombs killing innocent bystanders. A splinter group of the IRA fought back with one of the Trouble's biggest incidents, but a strong statement from Sinn Féin condemning the bombing helped restore order. In June, elections were held for the newly created Northern Ireland Assembly. The more extreme political parties led by Ian Paisley of the Democratic Unionist Party and Sinn Féin led by Jerry Adams and Martin McGuinness split the vote almost evenly.
Though the peace line wall still stands separating the Catholic and Protestant neighborhoods in fear of a reprisal of violence, the sentiments on the wall show the turn of tide of the emotional state of the people who want a peaceful end for generations to come. With encouragements from locals, the boys add their name in agreement and become a part of the history here.
After the wall, the taxi driver takes us by a few other tourist attractions that are interesting for kids here in Belfast. The Odyssey Pavilion.
It's a kid's fun place.
And the Harlan and Wolff shipyards, where giant cranes, over 300 feet tall, loom over huge shipbuilding docks.
There's cranes to put stuff on the boat.
This dock is one of the biggest in the world and can build ships to match. And the kids are really excited to find out more about it. So the driver tells us about an excellent transportation museum just outside the city center, and we plan to explore it tomorrow.
If we had more time in Northern Ireland, there is lots more to explore. Just north of here, counties Derry and Antrim host some of the most spectacular scenery in Ireland. Giant's Causeway, where over 30,000 huge blocks of basalt rock tumble along the coast like playthings of some invisible giant. And the city of Derry, whose 17th century walls still enclose the old town, which is alive with a vibrant music scene. But we have limited time, so today we are going to head just outside Belfast Centre to the Museum of Transportation.
Ready?
In the Transportation Museum, the kids have fun learning about the history of Belfast Fire Brigade.
What's this?
That is an old fire engine.
And the train system in Northern Ireland. After an overview,
Looks like the red train from Thomas. It's on the turning thing.
The driver turns the knob and pushes buttons to make the train go.
Look at that little one.
We head down the ramp for a closer look.
Don't let me get that. Start! All aboard! Go! I need you to go. Okay. Are you ready? Yeah? Go! All aboard!
Why bye to mommy?
And they learn how steam engines work.
In the olden days, after the turning, yeah, it's good.
Other parts of the museum feature more modern transportation.
Whoa, it's a Back to the Future car. DeLorean made in 1981. Only 10,000 cars were made.
What does this say?
These cars were sold, they were sold for $24,000.
And although they're interested and have lots of questions about cars and planes,
Why does the door go up?
one part of the museum in particular is a draw for them. The Titanic exhibit.
The Titanic is right here, and here's a picture of it sinking.
The designer's sketch gives them a good overview of this historic ship.
This is the drawing of the Titanic.
This is how big it's going to be, this is how many decks it's going to have, and how much rigging we need to keep it supported.
For more on this historic ship built in Belfast, let's go to Professor Nathan and his assistant Seamus.
It was the largest man-made object in the world. The windows all over here, and the engines, 4 of them. Can't really see the propeller, but you can see the rest of the boat, like strings, ladders, engines. Let's move on to another piece. Come on. And here's some pencil. This is the piece when it hit the iceberg. This is the piece that the iceberg hit and knocked off the ship. This is how thick the metal was. That's metal. Feel how strong it is, and the iceberg still actually damaged it.
And the kids are fascinated by the story of its sinking.
It hit an iceberg. They thought it couldn't sink, but sunk. And they were looking for icebergs so it didn't sink. But they were fooling around, so plop, and the iceberg hit it, and it sunk from there, from this end to this end, and it going. There was lifeboats coming, and it saved all these people, but it didn't save these people.
This many crew was saved. And these are second-class people saved, third-class people saved, and first-class people saved.
And what's the people that died?
The gray one.
What's the crew? The gray ones died, but the other ones didn't.
Crew is the people that work on the boat.
And one of them was Jack and Rose. And hers was supposed to be up here, but her died. But her didn't, but Jack died.
Wait a minute, this story is sounding very familiar. Didn't they make a movie about this?
We're in the museum. And we're gonna see another part. So, bye.
Kids find a really cool bell from the HMS Belfast, a British destroyer that was actually built at the shipyards here as well. And while you can't actually visit the Titanic unless you're James Cameron, of course, you can visit the HMS Belfast. It's docked on the River Thames in London, which is where we got a tour. Let's revisit that, shall we?
A long gangplank takes us from the shore to the HMS Belfast, which has free entrance as part of the London Pass. The wide decks give the kids plenty of area to explore.
I'm in the water on an army boat, and you can go down to the engine room, but you're not going to go, but you can do everything.
And steep staircases lure them below deck. Where still life scenes depict life on board a battleship.
The statues are eerily realistic.
I keep thinking they're statues, and then they see me, and they're like, ah.
And give us a great idea of all the different jobs aboard the ship.
Look! We can turn everything. We can do everything.
Deep below the deck,
I'm in the engine room, and you're below the water. You are below the water. time.
In the engine room, the kids create a little reenactment of their own.
Way down there is the very bottom of the ship.
All these levers to pull and buttons to push spark the boys' imagination.
Locked it. Emergency! Emergency! Start the boat! Beep! Let's see if any Germans are firing. They're firing lots!
After a bit of playing, we wind through the next rooms to find our way out,
How do we get out of this place?
where we pass torpedoes
What happened?
and an interactive museum gives an interesting naval history.
Above deck, the kids check out the views from the portholes
Seamus, don't talk to anyone. We're supposed to be spying.
and, of course, take their rightful place.
This says captain. Where's the steering wheel for the boat?
At the helm before we head back to shore for our leave.
35! Port! That ship going? Whoa, hard to burn.
A head full for our return to Belfast.
Delicious.
After the Transportation Museum, we hear the news. A historical day in the peace process is happening right now at Stormont Castle, which is on our way back to the city center, so we decide to make a detour.
Built in 1932, Stormont Castle was at one time the center of the British government here in Northern Ireland. Today, the foreboding white mansion with its tall pillars and stone-carved facade hosts the Northern Ireland Assembly, and today it's very much in the headlines.
It's here in Belfast. It's here in Belfast.
Today, for the first time ever, the Northern Ireland Assembly agreed to a power-sharing government led by Ian Paisley of the Unionists and Martin McGuinness of Sinn Féin. At one time, these two fierce rivals would not even acknowledge the views of the other, let alone work together. And now here they are, working with 108 elected officials in appointing ministers to finally put the peace process to rest and the new government in action. All parties have come to accord and are under one roof, moving forward with their plan.
The President of Britain is here, and the President of Ireland is here, and Jerry Adams is here. You think we'll see him?
As I watch the kids making peace signs in front of Stormont Castle on this momentous occasion, I think about the future generations of Northern Ireland. The old art murals of the opposing neighborhoods and the sentiments they left on the peace line wall, and I have hope for a new peaceful country. We realize what a gigantic moment in history this is and how lucky we are to be here to witness it. And it seems an appropriate end to our journey here in Ireland. That started in the capital of the South, Dublin, where we first learned about the struggles at Kilmainham Jail. And we explored the city's excellent museums and an amazing zoo.
There's a big giant fish right here. Seamus, look at these squiggly stars. And look at that jellyfish. Look at this weird one in the cage.
Away with the puff and the blue, and away
There's
with
a giraffe right here.
to see my lass who lives in Hexhamshire, over the Sadie Sire, over the moss and the fire. I want to see my lass who lives in Hexhamshire.
Here he comes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
cow.
They're gonna be the closest I've ever seen a jaguar in my life.
Who lives in Hexhamshire? Her skin is like the silk, and her hair is like the silver.
Crossing Ireland by rail gave us a look at the countryside and brought us to Killarney and the West Coast, where traditional music sessions happen spontaneously, and Irish is still the first language spoken in many households. The West Coast also offered perspective on the root of the Troubles, with visits to ancient castles like Blarney and Ross Castle, which were taken over by Oliver Cromwell's English forces during the mid-17th century.
It's a big castle, and it's really cool. And it's hard to get up these steps because they're turning, and the grown-ups, they could hit their head. I think I'm going to fall. Oh my gosh.
Oh, nice.
Heading north on Ireland's west coast, we discovered many of Ireland's natural treasures in the Burren, at the cliffs of Moher and Alwee Caves. The beautiful drive through the Connemara to County Mayo, where Carrie got to discover a bit of her own family history in the many O'Malley castles that dot the coast of Clew Bay.
Here there's a lot of sheep in Ireland. My great-great-great-grandmother lived here, Grace O'Malley. The great-great-great-great-great-great. So the last name is O'Malley.
This is O'Malley crest. The trip to the south definitely gave us insight into the long course of struggles here in Ireland, and after almost 100 years of tension, first when Southern Ireland had its war of independence with England, and then during the Troubles, when the status of Northern Ireland was fought for bitterly among countrymen. This moment ushers in a new era of peace and prosperity for this flourishing country, and I can't wait to return to explore more of the area's countryside and see what happens next.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of Travel with Kids Ireland. For more information on family-friendly destinations and for family travel tips, visit travelwithkids.tv.